In the winter of 1896, the survey ship Valbor pushed deep into the Arctic, its crew charting empty coastlines and logging the steady grind of drifting ice. The work felt routine at first. Then strange things began to happen. Fresh gouges appeared beside the hull. Low tremors passed beneath their boots. A distant ridge rose once, as though something under it shifted. They kept working, unsure of what they were sensing. None of them realized how close they were to the thing waking beneath the ice. So before we continue, please make sure to leave a like and let us know where you're watching from. Thanks. The cold on that voyage never lifted. Frost formed on the inside of the portholes before dawn, and our breath hung in the air even below deck. The sea was a broken sheet of loose ice, each floe scraping along the hull with a steady grinding. The Valborg pushed north under steam and reduced sail, her masts bare against a low gray sky. We were 16 men with one purpose. The Admiralty wanted new charts of the high coast and any observations that might help later expeditions. Captain Halmond led us, a spare, scarred man with pale eyes who had sailed these waters before. He spoke little, but when he did, the men listened. I served as naturalist, responsible for notes and specimens. I kept my notebooks in a leather satchel under my coat so the ink would not freeze. Whenever I went on deck, the air caused sharp pain in my cheeks and made my nostrils sting. Certain men stood out among the crew. Eric, the helmsman, was the youngest, quick with questions and restless glances toward the horizon. Duran, a whaler with missing teeth, judged ice and weather with an ease born of long practice. Our doctor, Anders, moved slowly but missed little, his gray beard always holding a trace of frost. Farther south, we had taken on a local hunter as guide. His name was Nauja. He came aboard in heavy fur clothing that smelled of smoke and animal fat. He inspected the ship with a brief glance, then went straight to the bow and faced north. His speech in our tongue was slow, but his meaning was always clear. When he offered advice on ice or current, even the most stubborn seaman kept silent. The light never rose far above gloom. The sun skimmed the horizon for a few hours, then slid away, leaving us in a long twilight. The wind was a constant presence, dry and sharp. We wrapped ourselves in wool and fur and still felt it in our bones. Work filled the first weeks. We took soundings, logged temperatures, and sketched the distant coast when it appeared as dark rock through the haze. When land showed, Nauja came to the rail and studied it in a careful way, his eyes moving from one feature to another. The first unsettled feeling came on a day that seemed ordinary. The sea lay in a flat gray calm, broken by scattered floes. I was on deck making notes on the extent of the ice when Eric called from the quarterdeck. "Look ahead to starboard," he said, pointing. I followed his hand and saw a wide band of ice lying across our course at an angle. That alone was not unusual, but its outer edge ran in a straight line that caught the eye. It stretched off in both directions until the haze swallowed it. Captain Halmond came up and watched for some time. Nauja joined him, his hood pulled tight. His face was hard to read, but he did not look away. The captain ordered the engine slowed. The ship crept toward the barrier, the grinding beneath us deepening into a heavier scrape. When we were close enough to see its surface clearly, we saw that this was thicker ice than what we had passed through. It rose in low ridges, but beneath them lay a solid shelf. "Test it," the captain said. Duran and two others climbed down with poles. They stepped out carefully, spread apart, and prodded the ice. After a short time, Duran straightened and waved. "It holds," he called. "Feels firm." A gangplank was lowered. Halmond decided we would use the chance to inspect the hull and measure the ice. Idleness in that cold bred complaints. Work kept the men steady. I joined the party going out, along with Anders, Eric, and several seamen. Nauja was already ahead, moving with a light step that made our progress look clumsy. The ice under my boots felt very hard and very still. It did not shift or creak. Faint lines ran through it, different from the straight and jagged fractures I knew. They were pale streaks that curved and branched. I knelt to look closer. The streaks held a faint yellow tint and suggested that material from within the ice had spread into long threads. Anders came up beside me. "What is that?" "Impurity," I said. "Sediment, perhaps." The answer did not satisfy me, but I had nothing better. A light wind rose and carried a thin hiss across the flat surface. The sound of the ship faded as we moved farther out. After a time, I realized I could no longer hear the usual groan of timbers or murmur of men, only our own steps and the wind. Ahead, Nauja had stopped. He stood still, facing farther along the barrier. His hand rested at his side. There was a tension in his posture that I had not seen before. "Do you see something?" I called. He did not reply. Captain Halmond raised his voice. "Nauja, report." The guide turned his head toward us, then lifted one arm and beckoned. His mouth was set in a hard line. Without a word, he turned back and walked along the barrier. The captain chose a small group to follow. I went with him, along with Anders, Eric, and Joran. The rest remained near the ship with orders to watch for any shift in the ice. We walked for several minutes. The ship shrank behind us until it was a dark shape against the pale horizon. The ice underfoot stayed hard, its pale streaks growing thicker and more tangled. The barrier rose into a low ridge ahead. Nauja waited there. As we drew near, I saw that the ice had changed color. The usual blue-white had given way to a faint green shade. The streaks widened into bands that curved together. Nauja lifted his arm and pointed down the far side. "There," he said. "Inside." I stepped up beside him and looked. At first I saw only the slope leading into a shallow hollow. Then shapes emerged through the cloudy surface. Dark curves lay embedded below us, arranged in an ordered way that no regular fracture could explain. They ran deeper into the barrier, broad and fixed. The ice appeared to have formed around some huge structure that did not belong to the sea at all. For a moment I thought my eyes misled me. The curves below were too regular, spaced at measured intervals, each one following the next in a pattern. Anders squinted and leaned forward, one gloved hand pressed to his knee. "Ribs," he said quietly. "They look like ribs." The words settled on us. I pressed my palm to the ice. It was smooth and hard beneath the crust of frost. Through it, the dark arcs were unmistakable. Each one was thick as a man's torso and curved in toward a central line buried deeper. Eric stepped up, his breath coming fast. "Whale?" he asked. "Can a whale be trapped like this?" I searched my memory of museum halls and drawings. Whales I knew. Their skeletons arched overhead with familiar proportions. These bones were longer, more narrow, and they met a central spine that seemed to run for an impossible distance beneath the surface. "No," I said. "Not any whale I have seen." Nauja knelt, his hand hovering just above the ice, not touching it. When he spoke, his voice had lost its usual steady tone. "Old jaw," he said. "Old hunter. Our elders speak of it. It follows the warm waters. When the sky changed and the cold came, it slept." Captain Halmond frowned. "You have stories of this?" He nodded slightly, eyes fixed below. "They say it swallowed boats. It circled the coast before men had guns. Then the sea turned hard and it lay down. The ice grew around it. My grandfather said there are places where its bones hold the ice in place." Anders gave a small shake of his head. "Stories grow. This is some large animal, nothing more." I was not sure. There were other hints. Near the base of the ribs, deeper in, I saw a broad, flat surface broken by a jagged line. As we moved along the ridge, the line sharpened into teeth. They were enormous, rooted in a jaw that dwarfed any mouth I had studied. Each tooth was triangular and set in a row that curved out of sight under the ice. The sight took my breath in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. A simple thought rose up, clear and unwelcome. I knew those teeth from sketches made at warmer latitudes, from stones pulled from cliffs long ago. "Impossible," I muttered. Anders heard me. "What is it?" "There is a shark known from fossils," I said. "An ancient one. Thought gone long before man walked these regions. Its teeth match these. Larger, perhaps, but the same form." "You mean buried rock," he said. I shook my head slowly. "Those are not stone. The color is wrong. And look there." On the edge of one tooth, the ice had fractured. A sliver of the material lay lodged in the frozen layer above. It held a dull sheen, not the matte surface of weathered rock. With care, I chipped at the ice around it with the back of my knife. A shard came free, still attached to the frozen matrix. I lifted it to my face. The fragment was heavy. Its edge showed layered structure, dense and compact. A faint trace of old organic smell clung to it, different from brine. It made the hairs rise along my arms. "It is tooth," I said, "not stone." Eric stepped back and looked along the length of the barrier, following the line of ribs and spine. "How long is it?" he asked. We walked farther, tracing the curve of the skeleton beneath us. For a long stretch, the ribs continued. We passed a section where something like a fin jointed off the main mass, the rays reaching outward. At last, after what felt like many minutes, the outline tapered. A tail structure lay spread beneath the ice, its span greater than the width of the Valborg. No one spoke. The wind brushed across us with a low hiss. Somewhere far away, the ship's bell sounded once. Captain Hallman broke the silence. "We will mark the position and take measurements," he said. His voice was steady, but his jaw tightened. "This is a discovery that will carry weight in every learned hall in the world." Anders nodded, already reaching for his instruments. I opened my satchel with numb fingers and took out my notebook. The pages stiffened in the air. My hand shook, not only from the temperature. As we worked, I kept my focus on angles and counts. It helped steady my thoughts. The spine lay nearly straight, only slightly bowed. Counting ribs, I reached a number higher than any known whale. The teeth we could glimpse through clearer patches suggested a jaw that could take in a fishing boat whole. While we measured, Eric moved along the ridge, his gaze fixed on the head. He stopped near where the skull merged with the ice and stared down, hands clenched at his sides. "Do you think it died here?" he asked without looking up. "Everything dies somewhere," Joran said. His tone held forced calm. "Perhaps it drifted north and froze in place." Nauja finally pulled his eyes away from the bones and looked at us one by one. "Our stories say it does not die," he said. "It sleeps when the sea's empty. When the water warms again, it wakes and eats until the ice drinks the heat." I wanted to dismiss the words as belief shaped by long winters and hard lives. Yet the size of the thing under us pressed on my thoughts. If such a creature existed in these waters once, it was not hard to imagine it as the source of many coastal tales. Hallman closed his notebook. "We have enough for now," he said. "We are on ice far from open water. If the wind shifts, we may be in poor condition to move. We will return to the ship and plan a more organized survey tomorrow." Relief and disappointment stirred in me at the same time. Part of me wanted to remain and study every detail. Another part wanted the sight behind me, the deck under my boots, the known creak of timber around me. As we turned back, I took one last look at the long shape below. The ribs disappeared into clouded layers. The jaw vanished under thicker ice toward the center. The tail spread like a dark fan. The scale of it left me feeling small in a way I had not known before. On the walk back, I fell in alongside Eric. His usual bright tone had dimmed. "You have seen many bones," he said. "Have you ever seen anything close to this?" "No," I answered. "Nothing that matches it." "So the stories might be right," he said, "about things too big to believe." "Stories often grow from some truth," I said, "but we must be careful. It may have died ages ago. If it drifted, the ice could have captured it while the world changed around it." He nodded, but his shoulders stayed tense. By the time we reached the gangplank, my feet were numb. The sight of the Valborg rising above the edge of the ice brought a practical comfort. Men waited at the rail. Their faces searched ours for any sign of trouble. We reported what we had seen in simple terms. Even stripped of detail, the account held weight. Eyebrows rose. Hands paused in their work. Oarsmen in the whaleboat stopped mid-stroke. Joran spoke last. "It lies like the frame of a church under the ice," he said. "You could fit our entire ship within its ribs." Murmurs spread. Some crossed themselves, others laughed shortly as if to dispel the thought. Anders held up the shard of tooth I had freed. "This is all we bring back for now," he said. "We will return with proper tools." The fragment passed from hand to hand. Men weighed it and turned it in the weak light. Each one fell silent while holding it, then gave it up quickly. That evening, the mess was louder than usual at first. Everyone had questions. Some wanted details of the head, others of the tail. A few pressed me about the ancient shark I had mentioned, its name, its size in old accounts. I answered as plainly as I could. Later, as the lamps burned low and the men drifted to their bunks, I sat with my notes. The boards under my chair vibrated with the steady, slow work of the engine. Outside, the calm held. I tried to pin the day's events down with ink. Measurements, positions, comparisons. The more I wrote, the more unreal it felt, as if the act of putting it to paper pushed it back into the realm of stories. At last, I closed the book and sat still. From somewhere beneath the hull came a faint, dull sound. It was different from the usual grind of ice. It had a slower, heavier rhythm. 3 times it came, as if something large shifted deep below, then stopped. I waited for it again. The silence that followed felt thick. When nothing more came, I told myself the noise had been ice settling under the changing weight of our hull. I repeated that to myself until I could stand. On my way to my bunk, I passed Eric sitting alone near the companionway. He was awake despite the late hour, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "Could not sleep?" I asked. He shook his head. "Every time I close my eyes," he said, "I see that jaw. I keep thinking the ice is thin and it could open." I almost reminded him that the bones were fixed, that age and cold had locked them in place. The words felt empty before I spoke them, so I stopped. "Rest if you can," I said instead. "Tomorrow will be a long day." He gave a tight nod. As I lay down, the faint memory of that heavy sound below us returned. I listened for it until the steady thrum of the ship's heart finally dragged me into sleep. I woke to distant shouting, my eyes opened to darkness broken only by the dim glow of a lamp swinging from a hook. The ship rocked in a steady rhythm, not from waves but from something heavier pressing against the hull. I sat up at once, boots in hand, and followed the voices up the companionway. Cold rushed over me as soon as I stepped out. Several men stood on deck, peering over the starboard rail. Joran held a lantern, its small circle of light barely touching the ice beside us. Captain Halmond was already there, wrapped in his coat, jaw clenched. "What happened?" I asked. "Something scraped below," Joran answered. "Not ice." The captain motioned for him to lower the lantern. Joran leaned over the rail by its handle. The weak flame struck the surface of the barrier we had crossed the day before. The ice near the hull bore long gouges filled with powder. They were deep enough to catch the lantern's shadow. "They were not here when we moored," Joran said. The captain looked toward the horizon as if expecting movement, but the world lay still. A low drift of snow carried across the floes. The wind had died. "Could be a shift below," Anders offered, large pieces settling under their own weight. "That is what I thought," I said, though the marks disturbed me. They ran parallel, as though dragged by something with many fixed points along its side. Eric came up beside us, rubbing his hands together. "I heard it twice," he said. "It felt like something passed under us." Captain Halmond dismissed the men to their duties. "We resume survey after breakfast," he said. "No talk of noise. Keep order." The group dispersed. Eric lingered until the captain walked away. "You saw how deep those marks were," he whispered to me. "Ice does not shift like that." "We cannot assume anything yet," I said. "There are currents under these shelves, strange pressures." He accepted the words, but not the comfort. His eyes stayed on the dark field beyond the ship. When morning light crept over the horizon, a pale haze settled across the barrier. The air had grown colder, enough to sting each breath. I felt a dull ache behind my eyes that only came with the deepest frost. Captain Halmond gave orders for a larger party to return to the site. Axes, saws, chisels, and measuring lines were gathered. The men spoke little as they prepared, glancing now and then at the ice as if expecting it to move of its own accord. Nauja appeared from below deck already dressed for the cold. He carried a short-handled tool with a wide blade, its edge carefully sharpened. When I asked what it was for, he answered without looking up. "To test hardness." We climbed down to the ice. The surface felt firmer than the day before. A thin crust had formed during the night and cracked under our boots. The marks from the scraping were clearer in daylight. They had frozen over with new frost, showing that nothing had passed recently. We moved along the ridge until the long shapes in the ice reappeared. The jaws, ribs, and spine waited unmoved. The sight no longer shocked me, but it unsettled me just as deeply. The captain assigned positions. Anders supervised cutting. Joran and two others began clearing loose snow. I took measurements again, checking them against my notes. The numbers held steady. As we worked, Nauja stood apart, watching the ice rather than the bones. His eyes followed faint patterns that the rest of us could not see. At one point he crouched and pressed his ear to the surface. "What do you hear?" I asked. He straightened slowly. "Stillness," he said. "Too much stillness." The men around us paused at that, but none commented. By midday we had exposed a larger section of the jaw. Anders and I examined the teeth. The ice around them had thickened, but the bone beneath looked unchanged. The edges showed no sign of decay. It was as if the creature had been frozen at the moment of death, then preserved perfectly. "If this is as old as you believe," Anders said, "there should be mineral replacement, but this structure is organic. It has no fractures from pressure. It is as if it has not aged." I nodded. "That is the part that troubles me." While we talked, a hard crack split the air. Everyone jerked upright. Joran pointed toward the ice beyond the tail section. A thin, dark line opened across the surface, running straight toward the ridgeline. It spread without sound, like a seam pulled apart. When it reached a cluster of pale streaks, it stopped. The captain strode toward it, careful with each step. He knelt and placed a gloved hand over the fracture. "It is spreading outward," he said, "away from the bones." Anders frowned. "Pressure change, perhaps?" "From what?" Eric asked. No one answered. We backed away from the new fissure. The ice held, but the mood had shifted. Even the men who preferred blunt explanations had grown quiet. The air felt heavy, as if the world waited for something. The captain ordered a brief halt to reassess. We gathered near the ridge, forming a half circle. Nauja remained apart, looking toward the north. He spoke without turning. "You should leave," he said. "Take what you have seen and go. This ice is tied to the bones below. If they shift, everything here moves." Captain Hallmund crossed his arms. "There is no sign of movement in the skeleton," he said. "It is fixed. The ice encases it." Nauja finally faced us. His expression showed none of the calm he usually carried. "The elders say the bones hold the cold. They keep the sea silent. When the sea wakes, the bones wake." "And what does that mean?" Anders asked. "That it rises when the water warms," Nauja said. "Not while the cold holds. Not while the ice rests." Captain Hallman did not dismiss him. He watched Nauja in a long, steady silence. "We will take precautions," he said at last. "But we cannot abandon a discovery of this scale. We will finish exposing the jaw and then return to the ship." The men resumed work, though slower than before. Even the sound of axes striking the surface seemed muffled by the surrounding ice. As I knelt to record more details, a whisper of vibration traveled through the ground. I pressed my palm down. The feeling returned, a faint tremor, too steady to be shifting ice. I stood. "Did anyone feel that?" I asked. Some looked at me blankly, others frowned, uncertain. Eric stepped closer and rested his boot on the ice. "I feel something," he said. "A pulse." The word made many straighten. We waited with stillness. The vibration came again, slower this time, but distinct. A deep, low thrum moved through the ice like a distant impact carried along a solid path. Anders shook his head. "That cannot be the bones. No dead thing moves." Joran pointed toward the far ridge. "Then something under us is pushing upward." Captain Hallmund held up a hand. "We are done for today. Back to the ship." No one argued. Tools were gathered at once. Men hurried but kept careful steps, each one aware of the faint tremor beneath. Even the air seemed altered, carrying a dryness that made my throat ache. When we reached the ship, Eric looked behind him once more. "It felt alive," he whispered. That night, the captain forbade anyone from going onto the ice. He kept a double watch. The lamps on deck burned long after most men slept. I lay awake, staring at the beams overhead. Every creak of the hull seemed sharper. Every small shift of the floes made me tense. Near midnight, the tremor returned, stronger. The hull shivered with it. Loose objects rattled. My bunk shook. I rushed to the main deck with the others. The air was still and cold enough to hurt the lungs. A line of fractures ran across the barrier in the distance. Then another, then a third, each one extending at a slightly different angle, as though tracing the edges of something rising deep below. The men formed a tight cluster near the rail. Fear showed plainly now, not in words but in clenched fists and tight jaws. Nauja stood at the bow, silent. "What do you think happens next?" Eric asked him. Nauja did not turn. "The sea remembers its hunger," he said, "and something below remembers the sea." His answer settled over us with the weight of truth we did not want. We stayed on deck until the tremors faded. When they did, the silence felt worse. The ice field beyond the ship was no longer still. It shifted in slow, uneven motions, as if stirred from underneath by something enormous. I returned to my bunk shortly before dawn, but sleep never came. My thoughts circled the same question. If the creature below had once lived, what would happen if the ice no longer held it? When daylight returned, it came weak and distorted through a veil of drifting frost. The temperature had dropped further, enough that my breath felt thick when I exhaled. Through the porthole, I saw the barrier had changed shape again. The fractures from the night were wider, and the surface had risen unevenly in long swells. This was no ordinary shifting. Something below had pushed. On deck, men stood gathered before the captain spoke a word. They stared at the ice as if expecting another tremor. Anders joined me with stiff steps, his coat pulled close. "You did not sleep either," he said. "No," I answered. Captain Hallmund emerged, his face pale from cold and strain. He looked at each of us, measuring the mood. "We cannot approach the site again," he said. "The ice is unstable. Our priority is to free the Valborg before this field tightens around us." No one objected. Even the most fearless men gave glances toward the ridge where the bones lay hidden. The memory of the tremors had carved fear into the group. Joran tapped his gloved fingers against the rail. "We need open water," he said. "If the ice closes, we'll be crushed." The captain nodded. "We start cutting a channel, full crew on rotation." Within minutes, axes rang out across the floes. Men worked in pairs, breaking apart thinner sections so the ship could turn. The sound of steel striking ice echoed over the empty plain. I joined one group, my hands numb despite the effort. Each breath burned in my chest. As we worked, the sense of being watched grew. The ice no longer felt like a solid platform. It held a tension, like something pressed upward from deep below. Each blow of an axe sent small vibrations along the surface. Eric kept glancing toward the ridge. "It feels wrong to turn our backs on it," he said. "We have no choice," I replied. "If the tremors increase, we cannot stay." He looked at me with strained eyes. "What if leaving wakes it more?" His question lingered. I had no answer. By midday, we had opened a narrow channel around the bow. The ship groaned as currents shifted under the loosened ice. But the progress was slower than expected. The barrier had thickened during the night, the layers denser and heavier. While the crew continued cutting, Captain Hallmund ordered Anders and me to record the state of the ice for the log. We walked along the ship's edge with instruments and notebooks. The cold made the ink sluggish, forcing me to press harder than usual. I paused when I reached the deep gouges near the hull from the previous night. They had frozen over but remained visible. The patterns looked deliberate, not caused by drifting ice. They ran in even parallel lines. Anders traced one with his glove. "Something large moved beneath us," he said quietly, and not slowly. The thought unsettled me more than I admitted. Farther along, we reached Nauja standing at the channel's edge. His expression was firm, not fearful, but his stance held tension. "We need to leave soon," he said. "The sea below moves. The ice above listens." Captain Hallmund approached from the stern. "I know you believe this creature has influence here," he said, "but we must act with reason." Nauja met his gaze without challenge. "Reason tells me the ice should not rise this way," he said. "Reason tells me dead bones do not shake the sea. Something below you do not understand has opened its eyes." The captain did not command him to silence. Instead, he looked back at the barrier. The ridge had shifted again. A low dip now ran through the center where the spine lay buried. Snow drifted into the hollow like ash into a pit. "We break free," Hallmund said. "Nothing else." Work resumed at a frantic pace. The men dug and cut until frost rimmed their beards and their breaths came in harsh bursts. Twice the ice shuddered. Each time tools paused in midair, and every man stood still until the tremor faded. During a short rest, Anders pulled me aside. "There is something wrong with the tooth fragment," he said. "Last night it sweated." I stared at him. "Sweated?" "There was moisture on its surface," he said. "Condensation forms in warmth, not cold. But the infirmary was freezing. The shard warmed itself." I felt a pressure in my chest. "Is it still warm now?" He nodded slightly. "Not warm. Less cold than the surrounding air." Before I could reply, a shout came from the bow. Men rushed forward. I followed, heart pounding. The ship had lurched. The ice beneath the channel had heaved upward, tilting the Valborg a degree off balance. The hull groaned loudly. Men grabbed for the rail. "Brace the rigging," the captain ordered. "Keep her steady." The heave settled, but a new sound replaced it. A low rumble traveled beneath us, steady and deep. It was the same thrum as before, but slower, more deliberate. It felt like a long breath drawn under the ice. Eric gripped the rail until his knuckles turned white. "It's right below us," he whispered. "No," Joran muttered behind him. "No creature can live beneath solid ice." Yet the sound continued. The hull vibrated with it. Loose ropes swung as if stirred by distant force. Captain Hallmund turned to the crew. "Full effort," he shouted. "We must free from this field. Work until we break through." Men charged back onto the ice. Axes struck with renewed desperation. Even those who rarely showed fear worked in silence. I helped dig, each swing of the axe jarring my arms. The ice cracked in loud bursts, water sloshed through new openings. Steam rose faintly where the water met the air, strange given the temperature. Nauja watched the water with narrowed eyes. "It warms," he said. "Below." I leaned close. He was right. The water was not freezing over. It churned in small, unnatural circles. "How can the water be warm here?" I asked. "It is not the water," he said. "It is what lies beneath it." Before I could speak again, a sharp cracking split the air. A massive fracture tore across the barrier, slicing through the distance between the ridge and our channel. Snow and shards flew upward in a plume. The sound rolled through my chest. Men dropped their tools and ran to the ship. The captain shouted for calm, but his own voice held strain. Then the ice buckled. A long section of the ridge collapsed inward. The hollow where the skull lay dipped sharply. Then the entire surface sagged as if emptied from below. The tremor intensified until it felt like the deck shook beneath an approaching storm. "We leave now!" Captain Hallman roared. "All hands aboard!" We scrambled up the gangplank. Men hauled it in behind us. Duran and two others threw their shoulders against the windlass, turning it with frantic strength. The engine roared, belching smoke into the air. The ship shuddered forward. Ice cracked ahead as the bow pushed through. The water beneath boiled with strange turbulence. Eric stood at the rail beside me, eyes wide. "It's rising," he said. Across the barrier, the central ridge lifted. Chunks of ice burst upward like shattered stone. Beneath them, something dark moved. It stretched across a wide area, too large to see fully, shifting with the slow confidence of something waking from a deep, ancient rest. The jaw we had uncovered yesterday slid upward through the breaking ice. The ice broke into violent motion. Blocks rolled over each other, lifting and falling in uneven rhythms. The section where the jaw emerged widened with each fracture. Chunks tumbled into the churning water, swallowed by turbulence that did not match any current I knew. The jaw rose slowly, weighed down by sheets of frozen crust. Water poured off the teeth in narrow streams before freezing mid-air. The scale of it made the Valborg feel like a small craft. Men on deck pressed themselves against railings or rigging, unable to look away. Captain Hallman gripped the wheel, eyes locked on the chaotic field ahead. "Engine full," he ordered. "Break through the channel, now." The ship pushed forward. Ice crunched beneath the bow. The hull groaned as blocks scraped along its sides. The engine roared, shaking the deck under our boots. Behind us, the jaw continued to rise. It was not a single motion. It came in slow, heavy bursts, each lift followed by a pause, as though something below needed time to adjust limbs long trapped in ice. I stared at the teeth. Their surfaces glistened. The coloration no longer matched old bone. A faint, wet sheen ran along the edges. A shiver ran down my back that had nothing to do with the cold. Anders stepped beside me, hands trembling. "It should not look like that," he said. "Ice cannot preserve tissue like this. It should be brittle, powdered. This is..." He stopped. The jaw opened a little wider, enough to expose the dark interior of the mouth. Rows of teeth on both sides curved inward. The space between them was wide enough for a lifeboat. A sound followed. Not a roar, not anything shaped by lungs or throat. It came as a deep exhale forced through breaking ice. It rolled across the barrier, shaking loose frost from the rigging. Men ducked instinctively. Joran ran to the captain. "We cannot outrun it on this ice," he said. "We need open water." "We will reach it," Hallman insisted. "Keep the bow clear." The crew returned to hacking at the ice ahead with renewed panic. I joined them, though my hands shook. Each strike sent shards flying. The channel widened with each blow. Eric shoved a block aside and shouted, "It's moving again!" I looked back. The ridge behind us had collapsed entirely. Ice fell inward in large sheets, pulled down by something beneath. The water churned harder, throwing up froth and slush. The spine uncovered itself in segments as the ice above it broke apart. A long curve rose just above the surface, not bone, not fossil, wet, heavy. It flexed slightly before dropping back. "Did you see that?" Eric gasped. "It moved. It actually moved." I had seen it. There was no denying it now. Something waited beneath the ice, something that should not exist in any age of man, something that had endured long enough for our world to forget it. We broke through another stretch of thick slabs. Water surged along the bow. The ship lurched into a deeper patch, and for a moment the hull lifted clear of scraping contact. "Again," the captain shouted. "Clear the next section." But before we could begin, a pressure rolled under us. I felt it through my boots, through the boards, through the railing under my grip. A rising force, entirely deliberate. A moment later, a massive swell heaved the water directly beneath the stern. The Valborg lifted sharply. Men stumbled. Barrels slid across the deck. Ropes snapped tight. I threw my arms around a stanchion as the stern rose, almost tipping the bow downward. The engine shrieked, gears grinding under unnatural strain. Captain Hallman yelled, "Hold position! Brace yourselves!" The swell dropped. The ship slammed back onto the water with a jolt that rattled my teeth. When I regained my balance and looked behind us, the water formed a circular depression. At its center, something broad and dark turned under the surface, creating a spiral of turbulence. Ice fragments were drawn into it, swallowed instantly. A vast shadow passed beneath us. It was large enough to blot out the faint light hitting the water. The shape glided under the hull and vanished toward the torn ridge. The ship shook in its wake. "It circled us," Anders said. "It knows where we are." Nauja finally spoke from his position at the bow. He had not moved during any of the chaos. "The sea wakes something that remembers hunger," he said. "It looks for the warm shape of a boat." No one argued. The captain forced the ship forward again. Men chopped at the next barrier with frantic speed. My arms ached with each blow. The cold made my breath sharp. The world around us narrowed to a path we had to open before the creature returned to the surface. The tremor returned. Stronger this time. A section of ice behind us rose several feet before exploding outward. Water sprayed into the air, freezing before it fell back. From the shattered gap, a large part of the skull broke through. It carried with it slabs of ice that slid off its surface and crashed into the water. The skull lifted higher. Dark eye sockets stared without life, yet the head moved with purpose. The jaw opened again. Water rushed between the teeth, drawn inward. The sound of suction filled the air, a steady pull that made the deck vibrate. "We cannot let it surface here," Captain Hallman roared. "Cut faster! Move!" Men screamed as they chopped, hacked, shoved blocks aside. The channel widened another meter, enough for the ship to press through. The hull ground heavily but moved forward. The creature's head sank briefly, then surged in a sudden forward motion. Ice shattered ahead of it. Chunks scattered across the barrier like thrown stones. The force of the surge pushed waves under the ship, lifting the bow before dropping it again. "It's trying to break free fully," Duran shouted. "If it reaches open water—" He didn't finish. No one needed him to. I turned to Nauja, desperate. "Is there anything we can do?" He answered without looking away from the ridge. "You cannot fight it," he said. "You can only leave before it remembers the shape of you." We pushed through the last section of ice around the bow. Beyond it lay a broader stretch of dark water, not open sea but deeper than anything around us. The engine strained, metal ringing under the effort. The ship slid into the wider gap. A roar of cracking ice echoed behind us. The creature's head plunged forward, shattering the ridge fully. The spine arched behind it, rising through broken slabs. Water sprayed around the structure, carrying slabs that crashed back onto the floes. The creature was freeing itself. Captain Hallman gripped the wheel and shouted over the noise. "All hands prepare! Once we clear the next layer, we turn south." Another surge rolled beneath us. The water swelled, lifting the ship again. This time the movement came from directly behind. Eric stared at the water and whispered, "It's following us." Anders stood at the rail beside him, jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. "It is no longer asleep," he said. The ridge behind us collapsed entirely as something massive pushed through, rising toward the surface at a steady pace. The water behind us rose again, but this time the lift did not drop. The ship tilted forward as though something massive pushed upward beneath its stern. Men threw themselves against the deck or clung to rigging. A rope snapped near the mizzenmast, the end flailing through the air before dropping into the water. I steadied myself and looked back. The creature's head had cleared the last of the ridge. The skull was half-coated in slush, the teeth lined with fresh water flowing between them. Fragments of ice circled its mouth before being sucked inward as the jaw narrowed and widened in slow, steady movements. The eyes remained hollow, yet the head tracked the ship's movement with undeniable purpose. "Faster!" Captain Hellman shouted. "Everything she has!" The engine strained, giving a deep mechanical groan. The ship surged forward, but the swell behind us increased. The creature moved with an ease that erased any illusion of safety. It did not thrash or strike. It advanced with steady force, rising through the water and pushing aside slabs that would have crushed any ordinary animal. Duran scrambled to the engine hatch and shouted down to the men below, "Give it more pressure! Push her!" From inside, the engineer shouted back, "We're at the limit!" The ship slid deeper into the wider pocket of water. The ice field in front of us thinned, the sheets smaller and easier to break. Men thrust poles into the floes, shoving them aside. Every movement carried urgency. The creature advanced. The water near its skull churned with rising bubbles, each burst throwing up small bursts of steam that froze on contact with the air. I saw the top of its spine breach the surface in several places, long curved segments moving under the film of slush. Anders gripped the rail tightly. "It should not move this way," he said. "Not after so long, not with bones like that. Something about it is wrong." He was right. The skull that emerged was bare, yet the way it lifted and turned felt controlled. Something beneath the ice, hidden by depth and shadow, drove the motion. The creature dipped below the surface. The swell behind us increased again, lifting the stern higher. The bow plunged deeper, taking in a small wash of icy water that slid across the deck before draining back over the sides. "Keep her steady," the captain ordered. The ship balanced, but only barely. Another surge approached, louder and closer. I felt it through my boots before it broke. When it came, it was forceful enough to tilt the ship as if a massive hand pressed against the hull. Gasps broke across the deck. Several men fell. One slid dangerously close to the rail before two others grabbed him and hauled him upright. I gripped the nearest rope and braced. The surface behind us bulged. Then something enormous rose. A large portion of the creature's back broke through the water. It was not bone. The surface was dark and rough, but it did not carry the color of stone or ice. Meltwater ran down its length. The shape extended far beyond the head we had seen. It was alive, or something close to living. Eric stared at it, shaking. "We cannot outrun this," he said. "No ship could." "Help the captain," I said, though I was not sure how we could. The creature submerged again, but the movement created a powerful pull. The ship drifted backward despite the engine pushing forward at full strength. Chains rattled, loose boards shifted. Men clung to whatever they could reach. The captain refused to give ground. "All hands, get weight forward," he shouted. "Shift everything we can. Move." We hurried across the deck, dragging barrels, crates, even lengths of anchor chain toward the bow. The ship responded. Its front dipped slightly, giving the engine a small but crucial advantage. Water parted ahead. The ice field thinned further. We were close to breaking into deeper water. I could sense it in the way the ship moved with less resistance. But the creature surged again. A large shadow passed beneath us, darkening the water. The hull vibrated violently as the mass brushed against it. A clamp-like pressure struck the keel from below, lifting the ship enough to make the deck tilt again. The sound that followed was a deep grinding. The creature rubbed against the ship's underside as though testing our weight. Anders staggered and clung to the rail. "It knows we are escaping," he said. Another surge from below jolted the helm. The captain wrestled with the wheel. "Hold fast," he shouted. "If we lose control, she'll turn broadside." We heaved more weight forward. The bow pressed deeper into the water. The engine fought the pull with every ounce of pressure left in its boilers. The ship moved again, inch by inch. Then the creature rose directly behind us. Its skull broke through first, sending water spraying outward. Its jaws parted. Rows of teeth glistened with a thick sheen of meltwater. The interior of its mouth gaped wide enough to swallow the stern. The force of its movement pushed a wave toward us that lifted the stern sharply, nearly pitching several men overboard. The captain yelled, "Forward, now!" The Valborg surged ahead. The bow broke through the last sheet of stiffening ice. A sharp crack rang out as the ship entered a longer stretch of open water. The hull dipped into the deeper surface, gaining speed. The creature lunged. I grabbed Eric's arm and pulled him away from the rail as the jaws came dangerously close to the stern. The water between ship and creature churned violently, pulling us backward again. The stern timbers groaned under the strain. For a moment, it seemed we would be pulled back into the maw. Then, a loud tearing sounded from the engine room. A final burst of pressure forced through the lines, and the ship lurched forward with a surge unlike anything before. The bow rose slightly. The stern dipped. The entire hull shot ahead with a force that threw half the men to their knees. We broke free of the pull. The creature snapped its jaws shut on empty water. The impact sent a spray of ice and foam into the air. The force of it rocked the surrounding floes. The Valborg sped forward into deeper water, leaving the broken ridge behind. The creature followed, its skull pushed through the water with relentless strength. Its back rose, long segments breaking the surface in intervals. It moved without hesitation, driven by something ancient and focused. "Can we lose it?" Eric called to the captain. "We will," Hallman said, though his voice was strained. "Deeper water gives us speed. The ship accelerated, the engine howling under the pressure. Ice fell away behind us. The creature advanced but lost small ground with each second. I watched the skull fade slowly in the distance, though it remained above water. It did not dive again. I doubted it needed to. For more than an hour it followed, always the same distance, never gaining, never falling far behind. Then at last, it slowed, first by a fraction, then more. Its head dipped, not in attack but in retreat. The spine segments sank below the surface one by one. The water stilled. The creature disappeared fully beneath the ice fields behind us. Only then did the Valborg lower speed. The engine hissed in exhaustion. Men collapsed to the deck. Some murmured thanks. Others just stared at the empty horizon. Eric leaned against me, breathing hard. "We survived," he said. "For now," I answered, because the truth came in slowly. Something ancient now moved beneath those waters again. The captain ordered the engine reduced to a low, steady pace. The Valborg drifted into calmer water, the ice left behind in broken fields scattered across the horizon. No one spoke above a whisper. Each man kept a hand on a rail, a crate, a rope, anything solid enough to keep him grounded after what we had seen. The sudden quiet felt unnatural. Even the usual groan of timbers sounded distant. My ears rang with the memory of grinding ice and the deep pressure from below. As the hours passed, men returned slowly to their duties, though their movements lacked the usual rhythm. Anders approached me at the rail. His face was drawn, his breath tight. "I checked the tooth fragment again," he said. "It no longer holds warmth. It is as cold as the hull." "What does that mean?" I asked. "I do not know," he said. "But when the creature rose, the ice around its skull melted in patches. Perhaps the warmth belonged to it, not the tooth." We both looked back. In the distance, the jagged ruins of the barrier lay slumped over the water. A faint tremor ran through me at the thought of what now moved beneath those sheets. The creature had retreated with purpose, not exhaustion. That certainty chilled me more than the cold wind. Eric joined us a moment later. He rubbed his palms together as though they still carried the tremor of the deck. "It is still there," he said. "I feel it. Not physically, but I feel it." "It will not follow far into open water," Nauja said, approaching from behind us. His voice carried with unexpected calm. "It lives where the ice closes the sun. The deep cold is its shelter." The captain stepped toward him. "Is this why your elders feared it?" Nauja considered the question before answering. "They feared what it meant," he said. "They said the sea once held many hunters. When the warm winds rose in ages past, they fought for dominance. The last of them sank into colder beds. Some froze, some slept, some hid beneath cliffs of ice. This one endured longer than the rest." Joran overheard and muttered, "That thing should have died." "It did not," Nauja said simply. The wind shifted, carrying a dry chill across the deck. The sky grew clearer, a faint pale blue emerging above the horizon. The sun remained low but cast a muted glow across the water. Under ordinary circumstances, it might have lifted spirits. Instead, it made our isolation clearer. Captain Hallman called the crew together. His coat hung heavy on his shoulders, but his voice held steady authority. "We will chart a course south," he said. "We report what we witnessed with accuracy, not fear. No embellishment, no speculation. The Admiralty will decide what to do with this information." Men exchanged uncertain glances. Some nodded. Others looked down at their boots. "You think anyone will believe it?" Joran asked. "They will believe our records," Hallman said. "They will believe the measurements. They will believe the changes in the ice. They may not believe the rest until they see it with their own eyes. And when they see it," Eric said quietly, "it will be too late." A silence followed. No one offered comfort. Each man was thinking the same thing, that the creature could rise again, elsewhere, at a time no one expected. Through the rest of the day, we maintained course. The water grew deeper. The flows thinned. For the first time since the expedition began, we were truly moving away from the unknown behind us. Still, the dread did not lift. Every ripple against the hull made men glance backward. Every faint creak felt like a warning. At times, I leaned over the rail and watched the water for signs, though I knew it was futile. Shortly before dusk, Anders approached with a question I had avoided. "You said fossils of this creature were found in stone," he said. "How old?" "Millions of years," I answered. "And yet this one moves." "Yes," he exhaled slowly. "Do you think it lived through all that time? Or do you think it was preserved by conditions we do not understand? I do not know, I said, but something under that ice allowed it to endure. He looked toward the horizon. If there were one, could there be more? The thought tightened my chest. I had no answer to give. That night, the captain kept another double watch. Lamps burned along the deck, casting weak circles of light that barely touched the water. I took a shift with Eric and 2 others. The cold deepened until every breath felt sharp. Hours passed without disturbance. The surface remained calm. Even the memory of tremors seemed distant. At one point, Eric leaned close. "Do you think it returned to sleep?" he asked. "Maybe," I said, "but something woke it once. That could happen again." "What would wake it?" he asked. "The same thing that breaks ice shelves, the same thing that warms currents, the same thing that changes coastlines." He understood. I did not need to say more. Near midnight, I stepped to the bow where Nauja stood alone. His posture was straight, his gaze on the dark water. "You do not seem afraid anymore," I said. "I am," he answered. "But fear helps nothing when the danger is far behind. What matters is that you understand where you sailed." "What should we tell the Admiralty?" I asked. He paused before replying. "Tell them the sea is older than they know," he said. "Tell them there are places no chart can protect them from. Tell them not all things that sleep remain asleep." He walked away without another word. The remainder of the night passed without incident. By dawn the next day, the broken ridge had vanished entirely behind the horizon. Only open water lay ahead. The men recovered slowly. Their laughter returned in small measures. Meals grew louder again, but none of them forgot. When the captain ordered us to review the logs together, every man treated the work with a seriousness I had never seen on any voyage. We wrote everything: the measurements, the fractures, the tremors, the rise of the skull, the pursuit, the retreat. We did not add speculation. We recorded only what could be proven and what we had witnessed with our own eyes. When the log was complete, Captain Halmond closed it gently. "This will cause debate," he said. "It will be questioned, ridiculed, but it will not be dismissed forever. The ice will shift again someday. Someone else may find what we found." "Or what follows it," Joran muttered. Weeks later, after calmer seas and long travel south, we sighted land again. The chill eased, the boards thawed, the scent of open water replaced the dry sting of polar air. Men straightened with relief as the coastline grew familiar. On the morning we entered harbor, I stood at the bow and watched as gulls circled overhead. The world looked ordinary again, yet somewhere far to the north, beneath heavy sheets of ice, something vast had moved after an age of silence. I knew it would move again.